SAGES Stories.
Welcome to today's episode of SAGES Stories, the official podcast of SAGES, the Society of American Gastrointestinal and Endoscopic Surgeons. Please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you can stay up to date with our most recent episode, and enjoy the show. Welcome to episode 10 of SAGES Stories, where we shine the light on some of SAGES' most impactful leaders. I am your co-host, Dr. Shirin Tofi, from slightly chilly, almost June gloom, Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Dr. Kevin L. Hayek, zooming in from Cleveland, Ohio. Sharon and I are so excited to have episode 10. We hit our milestone of SAGES Stories. And the reason we're excited is that because to celebrate this landmark event, we are privileged to have one of the original founders and the first ever SAGES president, Dr. Gerald Marks. He is a perfect 10 in our SAGES world. He was born merely 97 years ago in Brooklyn, New York. He completed his undergraduate and medical education at Villanova College, Jefferson Medical College, and Ohio State University. Dr. Marks then completed his surgical training and proctology fellowship. Yep, colorectal surgery was called proctology then, at Jefferson Medical College from 1949 to 1954. He is a World War II veteran who served in the United States Navy, both as a reserve and in active duty. He then followed that with a very active career in colorectal surgery, mostly in Eastern Pennsylvania. Over the span of this podcast, we'll dive a little more into his very active career as a colorectal surgeon, and not to be denied the opportunity to still be involved in teaching. He is currently a clinical professor of surgery at Lankenau Institute for Medical Research. We look forward to hearing from the great Dr. Jerry Marks today. Thank you for joining us, sir.
You flatter me, Kevin. Thank you for the invitation and the pronouncement. Thank you.
This is great. Any member of SAGES has either known you as a friend or knows of you through your tremendous legacy that you've left with us so far. I've had the privilege of chatting with you, Jerry, and getting to know you. And you sent us your very heavy, thick 53-page CV, which made for really great, exciting bedtime reading. So thank you for that. As you know, SAGES Stories is a podcast where we really try to get to know some of our SAGES current and past leaders. Over the past 9 episodes, we've interviewed a diverse group of SAGES luminaries, such as your friend George Bursey, who is now 101 years old. We often hear how those of us who are currently practicing stand on the shoulders of giants, and your generation of surgeons continue to inspire us as we try to carry on the work that you've done. So perhaps we can start a little bit to hear about your upbringing. You were born in New York. Did you grow up in New York, or did you move at a young age?
No, I was born in Brooklyn. And at the age of 6 months, my parents divorced and my mother moved back to Philadelphia with me. And I spent my early years in the street, learning how to survive in West Philadelphia. It was a great time. I remember it vividly.
Wow. Was that a tough time?
Yes, it was. But I didn't appreciate that. I lived with my mother and an extended family. My mother was an immigrant, so I was the first generation. And the Depression had not yet set in until I was 5 years old. So my first several years were not bad, but after that, I became aware of the fact that resources were limited, and that there was a challenge ahead.
Yeah, the Great Depression.
But that, of course, helped shape me, I'm certain. I was a good student, but difficult to control, which, of course, made me the person I am as an adult. As I review some of the pivotal points in my life, I realized that they all contributed to how SAGES was formed, shaking the tree of tradition, resisting oppression, and promoting what I thought in my heart was best. I had an interesting childhood, intermediate period, high school experience.
Mhm.
The war started when I was a 16-year-old senior in high school
Yeah.
in December 7th. And
This is World War II you're talking about?
pardon? That was Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor.
And gee, I jumped over a lot of stories.
You jumped over
but
all the girlfriends from high school. We didn't get those.
no, somehow I was not sophisticated enough to have any reasonable success
What?
with the young women.
I'm sure you're being a proctologist helped afterwards.
I never used that term. As a matter of fact, when I decided to become a colorectal surgeon,
Yeah.
I described a path that was a bit unique. I think there were only 13 board certified general and colorectal surgeons when I graduated medical school in 1949.
Mhm.
So I never used the term proctology for me because I was more than a 1 or 2 inch guy. I was
Yeah, right.
the whole package.
Yeah.
But I think I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'm not sure just what sort of flavor you want in this
Yeah.
storytelling.
Oh,
Let's
we're
talk.
like Baskin Robbins. We got
Yeah.
31 flavors. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, but maybe talk to us a little bit about the 20s and the 30s. I think specifically we know just from reading about many of us just how challenging that time was. You alluded to the resources shortage, and obviously we feel inflation, and we feel a lot of things now, but obviously fail in comparison to what you went through. So what was that like? How did that impact you?
My mother remarried. My mother was a beautician, and she had a beauty shop, and she was the breadwinner. And my recollection is that on Friday evening there would be a loud discussion as to whether the bread man or the milkman would be paid. And there was that atmosphere of challenge that I recall. But everyone around us had the same challenges, with rare exception. So we didn't feel deprived in any way. The interesting thing, as I reflect, is how fortune, good fortune, directed me to this unbelievably fulfilling career. I mean, it's just unbelievable, really, because when I finished high school, I had no idea how I could possibly go to college and succeed in any avenue. I didn't decide on wanting to be a surgeon until April of my senior year in high school, when during the first blackout experience in Philadelphia, I had an appendectomy for acute appendicitis. I was a ward patient. I was a ward patient at the University of Pennsylvania.
That was in high school? That was your senior year in high
I was
school?
a senior. I was a 16-year-old senior in high school.
Mhm.
And I went down to the hospital alone, and I always negotiated it independently. I was a ward patient, and the chief resident operated on me. But what I witnessed in the preparation and in the conduct of my postoperative period was a culture that I had never been aware of. And I saw how important and serious the role of the surgeon was, and the adoration that he received from all those people he worked with and for the people he operated on. And I was
That's true.
an impressionable, wide-eyed 16-year-old in a large ward. I mean, that was a great experience. And I could see how he interacted with all the patients and the personnel. And I thought, goodness gracious, I want to be like him.
Wow.
And
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I decided that I could die without remorse. Well, you don't have any remorse after you die, of course. But the war had started, and all my friends went in the service. All the kids in the neighborhood went in the service. And I wanted to have one semester of college, and then I was prepared to take whatever consequences the war brought. So I went to work at RCA for 6 months, and then took a semester at Villanova before I enlisted in the Navy in June of 1943, when the war was raging.
Wow.
And that was my good fortune, because without that, I would never have been a physician.
So you did your military service then, and after you went on to residency, and then is that kind of the pathway then? When you look at the dates, just help us with the dates there. So did you go straight from high school, or did you go straight to college and then medical school? How did that service fit in there?
Okay, by all means, see if I can give this to you in a linear fashion. I worked at RCA, then I had a semester at Villanova in pre-med. Then I enlisted in the Navy and went to boot camp, at the conclusion of which I had a choice of either going to Annapolis or studying pre-med. I chose pre-med, of course.
Nice.
And they sent me back to Villanova, which was unexpected as well. And then in an accelerated course, it was only 3 years of college, I entered Jefferson. At the end of which, in my 4 years, I graduated in 49. I had a 2-year internship where we had no days off and zero pay.
Oh,
No pay. You had to buy your own uniforms. We wore white jackets and white duck pants.
did
And
you
had
get
to
room?
What?
Was it that you got room? That you just got, they just gave you room?
Well, yeah, we had a residence.
Yeah.
They had hospital beds welded on top of one another. Do you know how high that is?
Oh my
If
God.
you had to jump out of bed in the middle of the night, you'd break your ankle.
Well, yeah, they
And
were
then
called the residence dorm or the interns and residence dorm or something like that, right? Right. Either in the hospital
Yeah.
or adjacent to the hospital.
we were in the a portion of the medical school, a clinic. It was really part of the clinic that had been cannibalized. In any case, the pay was zip.
Zip.
But we learned to
Wow.
exist,
Wow.
and we were very happy.
Did you have to pay for medical school?
Oh, well, that's really part of the story I left out. The most important part of the story was the Navy sent me through college, and I entered medical school as the war ended.
Ah, okay.
I was still in the Navy,
I see.
and I was discharged in December of 45,
Hmm.
and I had the GI Bill, which carried me for 3 years, and I had to pay for my last year. I think tuition was $400, and I lived at home, so
Mhm.
I could do that. But a friend gave me $100 as a graduation present
Wow.
from medical school, and that's how I purchased my uniforms.
Hmm.
Then, with each ensuing year, you adopted uniforms that were discarded by the graduating residents, and sometimes it took a full roll of adhesive tape to patch it up so that you could go to work.
Oh my.
So you then, after, at some point you made the very wise decision to move to the great state of Ohio in 1952 and did some postgraduate studies. See, I tell Sharon that all the greats spend at least a little time in Ohio, this wonderful state, but I just can't seem to draw away from
Where did you
Los
grow
Angeles.
up?
I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio.
Did you really? Oh,
I did, yeah. So
was your father in the steel business?
no, he's a surgeon. He's an
Oh,
immigrant as
really?
well. Yeah,
Cold
he's
steel. He deals in
cold
cold
steel. Yeah,
steel.
he's in the cold steel industry. Yes, he's a general surgeon. Yeah, he's still practicing.
Oh, good.
Youngstown, Ohio,
Good.
75. Still kicking. He probably works harder than I do. There's no doubt he works harder than I do.
Where did he go to medical school?
In Lyon, in France.
Lyon.
Yeah,
With
in Lyon.
Jean Papillon.
Yes, yes.
Do you know Jean Papillon?
Well, he told me about him. Yeah, he told me all about him.
Yeah, I spent some sweet moments there.
Wow, that's great.
Lyon's a
Yeah,
great town.
Lyon's a great town.
So,
Go ahead, yes.
Jerry, okay, we got the whole thing about Ohio. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, well, yeah, thanks very much. But
I just wanted to say you spent
I'll
some
tell
time
you
in
what,
Ohio. I love that. That's
I was
great.
doing high altitude physiology at the Aeromedical Laboratory in the Air Force in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, Dayton and Wright State, Wright Patterson. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And I was with a group of guys who were internal medicine residents from Duke who were as bright as could be. And we put together a physiology program, and we wanted to take a sophisticated approach to our studies, and we enlisted in Ohio State. It ended up, we gave the course ourselves.
So you were both the students and the teachers. You gave the
Yeah.
course. You
Well,
created
It
the
was the Depression. You forget.
these guys were smart. These guys were smart, but that experience at Wright-Patterson was enormous. We had more electronic equipment in a closet than the whole medical school I came from enjoyed.
So interesting.
So Ohio, Xenia, Ohio.
Xenia, Ohio. I know it. Yes.
Yeah. So
So-
what that H stands for?
Oh, Kevin's wearing a
Don't
T-shirt
tell me.
with an H on
Oh,
it.
yes. Yes. My t-shirt. Yeah. So I did spend some time in Boston too. I went to undergrad at Harvard. So
He's a Harvard
these are
man.
my
Oh,
you know, yeah.
I'll tell
So.
you seem to be the exception. You seem to be normal.
That's true. I tell all my roommates that some of them listen, so I tell them that as well. So see.
Hey, where did you reside? Where did you take your residency?
Oh, Case Western Reserve, Case in
In
Cleveland,
Ohio.
in Ohio. Yeah, and then I
Yeah,
stayed
well,
here, and then
course,
Cleveland Clinic for residency, and
In
stayed
Ohio.
there, also in Ohio. So I'm stuck. I'm in Ohio. I'm an Ohio boy.
Was Jeff Ponsky the chair when you were there?
He was the chair of university hospitals when I was at Case for medical school, and then he had come back to the Cleveland Clinic when I was there as faculty. So we actually shared an office for a year. I have a great picture of us sharing an office as he was moving into his new digs there at the Cleveland Clinic for his final run. He recently retired, but he's going to be back there teaching as well. So
Did he retire?
He did officially, but then I saw him.
A youngster like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he did, but he's still very active in the city.
I have warm memories of him. He, at a very early moment in his career, he was at.
Oh, this is good. I'm getting some dirt on Dr. Ponsky.
This
is awesome.
He was at, what's the name of the?
Mount Sinai.
He was at Mount Sinai and trying to make a name for himself, and he was interested in endoscopy, so he put together a flexible fiber optic sigmoidoscopy program, which I participated in. I was sort of the kingpin at that time.
Was that also where you were both the learner and the teacher?
Pardon?
I'm just kidding. Never mind.
Well, say that again.
Is that also a
Funny.
situation where you were the teacher and the learner and maybe the patient at the same time?
He was just the teacher then, I bet.
Oh, wait a second. Yeah, I taught myself. We had to teach ourselves.
Yeah.
I had the first production model colonoscope in the nation that moved in one plane.
What?
Wow.
And
that's really cool.
There wasn't anybody could really show me how to use it. The engineer from Olympus visited and was very, very helpful, but it was mostly trial and error and teaching yourself. I marvel at how we survived those periods.
So based on your story, surgery it sounds like you want to be a surgeon. You had great exposure early on. We are the best of the best in terms of medical doctors. We all believe that.
Right?
Non-biased.
Not biased. No, of course. This is objective data.
Yeah.
And we're the best looking, apparently. That's been proven in the literature that surgeons are better looking than
Sharon helps us all out with that. Yeah.
Oh, God.
So did that go from, did you go from, is it like now where you finish, you're at the end of medical school, you try and match in a residency program? Is that how you got into residency, or?
There was not a match.
Yeah,
no.
what was the
No,
situation?
but I interned, as I told you, I had a 2-year internship of which I spent 18 months because the Korean War had started, and I joined the Air Force at that time. And before I left, I had my residency promised at Jefferson by the chairman of the department, Thomas Aloysius Shallow. So that's how that happened. I finished my residency in 57. And if you're interested in a little side story,
Absolutely.
I did high altitude physiology
At Ohio State.
right at Wright-Patterson.
Oh, okay. All right.
In
Still
Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah, still in Ohio, still in Xenia. And I did some work on positive negative resuscitation and the post-hypercapnic syndrome, which is what triggered ventricular fibrillation after cyclopropane anesthesia.
Mm.
And I was able to prove that reducing the mean endotracheal endobronchial pressure would benefit the patient in that particular situation.
During anesthesia or in the ICU? During
In
surgery?
the immediate cessation of the
Anesthesia.
anesthesia.
Mm. Wow.
But I had data that showed that by lowering the mean endotracheal pressure with a positive negative resuscitator, which, by the way, wasn't available. This came from a German scientist who had come to the aeromedical laboratory, and the little resuscitator was designed for mass casualties, but it had negative phase, and I was able to study that. And on the basis, I was so excited about the data that I hitched a ride back to Philadelphia to meet with Dr. John Gibbon, who at that time had been appointed, no, he had not been appointed the chair, but he was there. And I shared my data with him, and he was very excited about it. In the end, he suggested, by the way, we didn't have an anesthesiologist in 1952, 53, 54.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
It was surgeon run, right? It was surgeon run at that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Johns Hopkins, the head of anesthesia, was an ENT man.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were different days.
Different days.
And Dr. Gibbon, because of my research, thought I should be the first chair of anesthesiology at Jefferson.
Wow.
Oh,
So was this then before your fellowship or after your fellowship?
Well, he made the offer during my residency.
During your residency. Okay.
But I had interacted with him. I had done some little research in his laboratory before he succeeded in the heart-lung machine's first operation in 1953. But aside from that, it was torturous for me to say no to Dr. Gibbon. I wanted to be a colorectal surgeon.
So you declined and went to you did an additional training. And I can't imagine at that time you even mentioned that there were several few 13 or so.
There were only 13.
Yeah. So what was that year like? That kind of specialized training. It was clearly a unique situation back then.
It was sort of different. It didn't fill the usual description. It was mostly anorectal stuff. I had the big stuff. Dr. Thomas Aloysius Shadow had one of the largest colorectal services in town, except for Dr. Harry Bacon. So I had a big experience in colorectal surgery in the open part of the surgery. It was the anorectal stuff that I spent a year doing. A bit different, but it sort of gave me a different perspective totally. And as part of my development, as I finished my residency, I worked at Philadelphia General Hospital as the acting director of the Jefferson Service. And that sort of put the frosting on my surgical educational experience. So I'm not giving you a linear description of anything.
This is
But
awesome.
It's coming together. It is coming together. I think, whenever you're talking to someone, that has kind of lived through so much up and down in our country, and certainly just the length of time. My wife's grandmother's still here. She's 96, so she's in your era too. And whenever we talk, it's amazing what you've experienced over these decades. So we love hearing about it.
I love these stories. So Jerry, when George Bursey and Rick Green came on, they each had their take on how SAGES was born. And of course, you were very instrumental in the foundation of it as well. Maybe you can share with us, once you became a colorectal surgeon involved in sigmoidoscopy and all these new technologies, what is your story? What do you recall as the birth of SAGES?
Well, we're all the product of a series of accidents from the
This is true.
moment of conception, perhaps. And it was just one event after another that sort of built my entire experience and shaped my perspective. I got interested in radiation injuries. That's a whole different story. I had an unusual experience. Oh, stop. Here we go. Dr. Simon Kramer came to Jefferson from London with the idea that high dose radiation could affect the growth of rectal cancer at a time when the surgical establishment suggested that that was impossible, that adenocarcinoma was resistant to radiation. But he believed in high dose radiation, and we had a close relationship. So he asked me to operate on the patients that he treated with cobalt-60 unit with high dose radiation. At that time, the surgical establishment felt that it was too dangerous to operate on the radiated pelvis. And if you did operate on those people, there would be no healing. They might bleed to death during the surgery. And so the admonition was, do not operate on the radiated pelvis. I was forced, as I just finished my residency, because of my relationship with Simon Kramer, I had no choice but to do as he asked me to. And I did an abdominal perineal resections on these people that had full dose radiation. I learned that if you followed precise technique that these people could be operated on safely. So that began my experience in operating on the irradiated pelvis at a time when other surgeons refused to do so. Some of the reported series in the 60s included a 50% mortality. So
Yeah.
I built up an experience with radiation injuries, and I wanted to study them further. All we had available was a rigid sigmoidoscope, and with a fixation and contracture of the treated rectum, there wasn't any possible way you could explore colon. So I had been itching for a flexible instrument. I was following what they would bring out at the American College of Surgeons each year. And then finally they came up with a colonoscope. And without my wife knowing it, I took our earthly savings and purchased the first production model available.
Wow.
Wow.
But you know, that I guess serendipity was at my right elbow or something.
So I have a just quick question about this. So you buy this device, it's a prototype. It's what, the 70s at this point? 60s,
No,
70s?
1969.
69, yes. So it's 1969. And so what's the process of introducing this for, your patient? I mean, you have this prototype, do you bring it to the hospital? Like, how do you, how does that kind of enter into practice at that point?
I had it at the hospital. I would just examine people, not with any particular design or reason at the time.
Wow.
Early on.
You just told them, hey, we got this new flexible.
Yeah, let's look.
Let's look.
And so I had an initial experience. There are all sorts of side stories to this as
I can imagine.
Side stories. Yeah.
We did it under fluoroscopy.
Under fluoroscopy, yeah. I remember some of these early.
And then, of course, you were at the mercy of the radiologist.
Right.
Case to do.
Wow.
And then beyond that, the only place I could store the colonoscope was in the closed closet of the chairman of radiology.
Wow. Who washed it?
Yeah, you washed it. You washed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Too expensive to allow anybody else to touch it. But
wow.
And I had to find a closet that no one had a key to, and that was Dr. Philip Hody's closet.
Oh my goodness.
What I didn't know was that he took a nap every afternoon after lunch, so I could get in to get the damn instrument.
Oh, because he didn't know you were hiding it there.
Well, no, he knew I was hiding it there, but his nap priority. So, and then I had to put the stuff on a wheelchair and wheel it around from elevator to elevator, hospital to hospital.
So effectively, you were one of the first, if not the first, to do flexible endoscopy, flexible colonoscopy in the U.S.
Yes, but then, then, of course, things opened up. At the end of 71, we did the first polypectomy. Shinya was the first, but it was a wire loop in a plastic tube, and you lasso the polyp. And, you have to understand, when you do that for the first time, you don't know when you
What's
step
gonna
on
happen?
that
Yeah.
Bovie
You have
pedal,
no
you don't know
idea.
what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, we survived that.
Oh,
But
my Lord.
what occurred to me in 1972 and 73 was we were beginning to have a lot of experience, and there was no structure to the endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided we ought to have a symposium. We had the first colonoscopy symposium in the world. I did it with Worth Boyce, who was a colonel in the Army, his GI division, a great guy. And he and I co-chaired the first symposium. It was held in Philadelphia. We had 300 people, standing room only. They were knocking the doors down. It was something new and exciting because we could discover cancers for the first time with any authority, and you could remove polyps. So in 1974, we had the first colonoscopy symposium. I had to undersign a $25,000 chit in the event that this symposium would lose money.
Wow.
Did your wife know about that?
No, and I didn't know what $25,000 looked like or felt like.
Oh my
or weighed.
gosh.
Wow.
In any case, it was a great success, and
That was in Philadelphia?
it was in Philadelphia. We brought together a faculty of surgeons and gastroenterologists. We had all sorts of different specialties attend. It was an exciting time because it was new.
So was that the beginning then of SAGES? That was kind of the
Well,
foundation?
Of course, it was the spawning ground.
Mm-hmm.
In 1976, which is the second symposium, there were several surgeons. Oh gosh, John. I'm having trouble with names, but it became apparent that the ASGE, which is what we all belong to, were not kindly disposed surgeons, and that the manner in which surgeons approach an issue was quite different than how the gastroenterologists approach it. So it became evident that it would be helpful to have a surgical segment to ASGE.
Okay.
I mean, that made great sense, but they would have none of that.
And you just had to flip the letters around and you got SAGES.
The ASGE.
No, it wasn't that easy.
No, I know.
No.
So close.
Close. We needed one more S to get it.
It came out to the American Society of Surgical Endoscopists. What does that sound like?
Oh, that's a good one.
American Society of Surgical Endoscopists. The A's.
Okay, well,
the family program.
Yes.
In
Can't take me anywhere.
1976 and 77, the sigmoidoscope was introduced, and it was used clinically by gastroenterologists, and they gave papers condemning it. And it occurred to me that they weren't seeing the same people that I was seeing, And there was no way in the world that they would have data like that. So I decided to put together a 6 institutional study of the flexible sigmoidoscope and its productivity. So I gave that paper in 1979 at Digestive Disease Week for ASGE. You know, our data showed that we found three times the amount of significant pathology, mostly cancers, with a flexible sigmoidoscope than you would with a rigid scope. Wow. It was a comparative study. And as I gave the talk, there might have been several thousand people in the audience, but as I gave the talk, some of the shakers and movers in ASGE were lining up behind the microphones, shoot me down, because it was apparent that they wanted to kill the flexible sigmoidoscope for several reasons. Number one, it was an introduction to colonoscopy by surgeons, and they didn't want that to happen. And number two, it might it might make colonoscopy less desirable in many cases. No, I didn't say that properly. What it meant was their business was going to be thwarted. So as I stood there and handled their questions, I resolved that the time was right for the creation of a surgical society of endoscopists, gastrointestinal endoscopists. And that might have been in May, and in June, I went to the American Society of Colorectal Surgeons and made a pitch to a pretty substantial group, and they all wanted it badly. And one thing led to another, and SAGES was born.
And then, you know,
Wow.
keeping in line with many firsts that you experienced, you were elected the first president of SAGES. So
Appointed.
What does that mean, elected?
Appointed. Oh yeah,
Self-elected.
appointed. Yes, appointed. Yes. So what was that year like? What were some of your responsibilities and projects? What was that year like?
Where was it?
It's perspicacious of you. You realize that there will be a lot of intricacies.
Yeah.
1979, 80.
Yeah.
And I was able to.
Good year. I was born in 79. So that's a great year.
Oh great year. Yeah. In Ohio.
In Ohio.
You left that out.
Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah,
79.
don't do that again. You want to know? You want to say it again? It was a great year.
It was a great year. It was. The Peg was born the next year, 1980. So those are good years.
Okay. So
sorry.
I was able, I realized that we needed a healthy mix of participants in the early stages. And I asked some of the colorectal surgeons to step down, which they did. So we then began to have a multidisciplinary group of surgeons who've got together with a full measure of enthusiasm to start this society. Now, what hasn't been appreciated, and you can tell me whether you had heard this before. There were surgeons who wanted to kill us.
Literally?
We heard a little bit from Rick about
the
a little bit, but not
Okay.
let's hear your version.
You tell us your version.
we're looking at 1980 when we had our first scientific meeting in Atlanta.
Atlanta. All right.
You know, by the way, John Marks was there as a senior in high school.
He was,
Aw.
oh, that's
Isn't that-
cool.
Isn't that cool?
That is.
There's another side story to that, but I won't digress. We started to get structure and formulate our objectives, and they're notable. And all of a sudden, we sensed that there was resistance on the part of SSAT. And you'd have to wonder why that was.
Yeah. I mean, and
Well-
at that time, there weren't many surgical societies. Is that correct? There was ACS, SSAT, a few others, right? I
American
mean, maybe
Surgical.
some of
Right.
the
Yeah.
regional societies, things like that.
You're correct. What we offered, we originally offered to be part of SSAT. Would you like us to be part of your group? And they rejected us. And then we suggested that we develop a bridge between the two societies, SAGES and SSAT, which was rejected as well. And the reason was, SSAT were mostly academic surgeons who had important connections with the deans, and endoscopy was an important economic element to medical departments and medical school, departments of medicine. So there was a good reason for them acting out as representatives of their deans to kill us.
Just for the audience, SSAT is the Surgical Society of
The elementary tract.
Society of Surgery of the
Surgical
Elementary
Society,
Tract.
yes.
Yeah,
Very
remember,
academic. Yeah.
There's another story about SSAT and how it developed at a time when cardiothoracic and vascular surgery was the in thing, and department chairman who didn't do that wanted to glorify their own position.
Yeah.
So
Very academic society, and sounds like a terrorist organization too.
Now I am a member, and I'm a proud
I
member.
was a member too. I know.
I'm a
What?
proud. I mean, we'll be there next week at the DDW. It's just a lot. There's a lot more collaboration these days. I
Locked
think.
and
Oh,
loaded. Are you going to be
yeah.
there, Kevin?
Oh,
Locked
wait a
and
second.
loaded.
there's some cute stories that I could tell you as well, but I'm not sure. Oh, we're running out of time.
We'll keep you over for a little bit because this is too good. But we want to hit a couple other topics. But yes, this one's going to go over, and we're going to be okay with that.
Oh, but by the way, some of our members were threatened with academic annihilation. That's how bad it was.
I've heard
And
that.
now, if you reflect backwards, you realize that many of the SAGES presidents have been presidents of SSAT.
SAT, yes.
So
yes.
the world turns.
The world turns.
But there's so many experiences embedded in these stories you can't believe. It was fun. And then we had some scientific meetings, principally in Philadelphia, and SAGES was firmly founded. That's it. That's it.
Wow. That's
But
amazing.
there were rough spots. There really were.
SAGES, we all love SAGES. We all think it's the funnest, best, meeting, and we belong to a lot of surgical societies, but
Oh, it's something
there's
special.
something special about it, right? Something
Mhm.
special.
We tried to explain it.
Yeah.
Well, I think what happened was we attracted a lot of young, energetic,
Uh-huh.
ambitious, fair-minded,
Yeah.
great people.
A lot
Yeah.
of little Kevins.
Insurance. Kevin's insurance. Yeah.
Are you a member of SAGES, Kevin?
Oh yeah,
course, of
yeah.
course.
Oh yeah. I've been a member, a whole 15 years. I mean,
Yeah, well,
I
do you remember your first meeting?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely remember my first
You remember
meeting.
that Friday night?
Oh, I remember it. Yeah, like it was yesterday. I was like, what is going on here? There are a bunch of Asian surgeons who I saw giving talks earlier and now are dressed
Or
somewhat
naked.
differently. Yes.
Those days were really something. And it was all new and exciting. And
Yeah.
there was a brotherhood and a sisterhood
Yes.
and a motherhood,
Yeah.
Yes.
by the way, the wives of
Yeah.
our first groups of members played a major role in us together. It was,
So one of the very popular parts of SAGES, we'll get to, but an equally popular part is the Gerald Marks lecture. I love the Gerald Marks lecture. I always make sure that I attend it. It is so epic every time there's a guest lecture for that lecture named after you, obviously. For our audience, if you'd like to listen to past ones on YouTube, the Gerald Marks lectures are available. And if you're a SAGES member on the SAGES meeting app, you can catch the past invited lecturers. But did you know that there would be a lecture named after you? And what was the impetus behind that in terms of how did it all happen?
No, I had no idea. I think it was Jeff Ponsky who made the suggestion.
Really?
But so I owe him a big thanks. But it's overwhelming. I mean,
Yeah.
From someone who had one pair of pants in high school.
Yes.
Working for 17 cents an hour after school.
Wow.
To get a lecture for which I get no remuneration now. I wonder if you could do some.
We'll bring that up. We'll bring that up with the executive. They're going to be listening. So,
and we can have a lectureship on major hernias that I've established.
Caused. Yes.
Yeah, we can have the Gerald Marks party lecture.
We have a special segment. Here on SAGES Stories, that is our favorite segment. It's called the We Are the SAGES segment.
Yes.
And when you think back on all the SAGES meetings you've attended, what sticks out as the most memorable moment?
That's easy. It was the beginning of the surgical revolution. In April of 1989, Jacques Parasot. Are you familiar with Jacques?
Yes.
Yes.
He was the first president of EAES, my close friend. Jacques Parasot called me to see whether he could present a video on laparoscopic cholecystectomy.
Wow.
We were meeting in April in Louisville, Kentucky. And it sounded ridiculous to me. So I made a few excuses, which were really reasonable, because the program had already been set. We couldn't fit him into the main program, but we could afford him a booth in the scientific area where he could present his video. Well, the rest is history, because nobody was in the auditorium. Everybody was at his booth watching the ultrasonographic decimation of gallstones and doing a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. I couldn't sleep that night. It was so vivid, beyond all expectations as well. So it just shook me out of my shoes. But that was the beginning of the surgical revolution.
Yeah.
And all of surgery has changed. The resistance to change that characterized the surgical establishment had to be thrown out the window because everything changed. And you could no longer resist that.
That's amazing.
So that was my, do you have a
Sage's memory
experience that you'd like to mention?
Oh, Kevin's is not PG.
What?
Sharon is saying that mine is not, it's not, our Sages Stories podcast is currently family friendly, and she says mine is not family friendly, which is not true. I have, I honestly, my favorite memory was when Jeff Ponsky and Todd Ponsky were doing a lecture on doing a PEG versus a laparoscopic G-tube. And I mean, I was like, my side was hurting from watching these two father-son surgeons battle it out on the stage. I mean, it was just fantastic.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, you got to look that one up.
That was a good one, yeah.
It was. And then it was when IPEG and Sages had joined for a year. I think it was in San Diego. And then they ended up doing a thing in the sing off where they sang "Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better." I mean, it was fantastic. So that was probably the most memorable moment for me.
Oh, that should be, because you're close to both of them.
Yeah, I know both of them. I mean, and my dad knows, Jeff Ponsky. They're like the same age, and they all see each other. And
is Jeff that old?
Yeah, he's probably 76. Yeah, my dad's 75. I think he's got him by 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So Jared, we didn't get to know you about your family much, except for the multiple times your wife didn't know about the investments you made. But maybe give us a little glimpse into your family. And I do want to mention John Marks.
Yeah, Dr. John
your
Marks.
son, who has followed your footsteps.
Well, my oldest son is Richard. He's an orthopod who specializes in foot and ankle surgery. He was a tennis player of some sort, an All-American. Started to try to play in the pro circles. That's Richard. He's followed by, Richard went to Haverford. He's followed by Jimmy, who went to Swarthmore and was the first electronic bank analyst in the world. He was in the banking business. And then there's John.
Baby.
John couldn't get into Jefferson, so he went to Yale. No, I got that wrong.
I like that one. I like that
hey,
joke. That's a good joke for me.
I had that wrong. He went to Yale undergraduate, and then he went to Jefferson Medical School. So.
Excellent.
That's fantastic.
So, that was a major decision. Wait, when he finished his surgical training, there was a move afoot to encourage people to take 1 or 2 years in the laboratory.
Yeah.
It was 90, 4. And I was seeing, I was observing what was happening in surgery with laparoscopy. So it was my advice for him not to go in the lab, but to take a postgraduate course in laparoscopy. And he went to Nice, France,
Nice.
with Jean
Nice is nice.
Bouillel, and that was the difference.
Wow.
I was able to arrange for him to meet Gerhard Buis at that time, and he went up and spent time with Gerhard Buis with TEM. So he had that solid beginning at a time when colorectal surgeons said laparoscopy had no role to play in colorectal surgery. So John has become a virtuoso, if I can say so myself.
You can, and we will vouch for that comment. Yes.
And have you seen any of his single port robot?
I've seen, I'm not a colorectal surgeon, but I've definitely ventured into some of those sessions, especially when I was in training, and I always would see him prominently, showing his work, and it was always impressive. So he's a talented surgeon, for no doubt.
Well, I think you're all very talented. So don't be jealous, Kevin, but
I'm always jealous.
I feel I have a special bond with Jerry that you may not have yet. We have developed a nice friendship over a short time.
Who?
I got a gift. Did you get a gift, Kevin?
I did not get a gift.
Yeah.
I did not get a gift.
I did get a gift.
Well, you know what? You are a troublemaker.
That's true.
From Ohio.
Yeah.
You're not from Ohio.
No, he's talking about you. You're the
me?
troublemaker,
You.
Sharon. Yeah,
No.
you're the troublemaker.
Sharon.
Let me tell you. I'll tell you what it is, Kevin. So I got this beautiful gift in the mail. It's a calendar. It's actually the Marks calendar.
Oh.
Marks Colorectal Surgery calendar. And every month has a beautiful hand painting of a part of the world. And it's all Jerry's different
Wow.
areas that he's visited. It's so beautiful. And I paint as well. So I can tell talent. It's really, really
You
well
paint?
done.
Did you
I
say
paint.
you paint?
I
And
do.
What medium?
Acrylic mostly, and some watercolor.
Oh, well, let's have a show.
We should.
Oh
Yours
my
is
gosh.
so
Surgeons who
good.
paint. Surgeons
A
who
show and
paint.
tell.
Well, I think surgeons tend to have an artistic streak usually,
doubt.
so it's not uncommon to enjoy some type of art.
Yeah.
But yours is really good, Jerry. I did not know that you were also an artist.
Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing.
And you do this every year. Every year you have a calendar that has your work in it. Is that right? Pretty much.
23rd, the 23rd
Edition.
Wow.
Wow. And I'll
It's
tell you,
coming up.
just we didn't touch on so much of your life. Obviously, it's so rich, but one of the things you see is just all the travel that you did and all the honorary member of multiple societies and multiple countries that welcomed you in to be members of their societies. And I know that you probably have some fantastic paintings. Sharon, just send me a couple pictures so that I can be jealous.
Hey,
I will text you.
Kevin, please, if you were kind enough to send me your email address
Sure.
and your mailing address.
See how I fished there?
We'll rectify everything.
See, fishing helps.
I mean,
Sharon.
mine had a love note on it too.
Okay,
don't
I
know
think
if
I'll
yours
get. I
will.
think I'll get
Oh,
something to
you are a troublemaker.
Well,
I'll
listen.
send you a love note too, Kevin.
Thank you. Listen, I know I speak for Sharon and myself, and likely all of our listeners. When I'm so thankful for being able to spend this hour and
Yes.
hour plus with you. I mean, your story is so amazing, and I feel just privileged to be ones that captured it in this podcast format. I kind of have this vision of 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, people going back and saying who founded, who was the first president of sages are, oh, I think there was a podcast,
Yes.
and it's gonna be episode 10 of the first year of Sages Stories, and it was just fantastic to hear from you. So
Oh, thank you. There were so many things I didn't say.
I know.
I didn't
We may have to
tell
do a part two. We may have
tell
to
you
do a part
about
two.
the telephone conversations at 1:00 in the morning with Ken Ford, where
Mm.
we would orchestrate some negotiations. He would wear the white hat and I wear the black hat. Everybody hated me and they loved me.
Aw. Good cop, bad cop. Yeah.
Good cop, bad cop.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Jerry. We really appreciate it.
Oh, hey, let's share images. You never touched upon my tennis. Oh my God.
I didn't know about your tennis. When do you play tennis?
I don't play anymore. I played the 90-year-old grass court championships where we almost beat the world champions.
Wow.
Oh my. Is this how your son Richard kind of got into it too?
Or did he go before you?
Yeah.
He did it before you? Or you did tennis growing up?
No, I didn't play competitive tennis until I was 85.
What?
That's great.
See, there's hope. I have hope.
So there's hope for all of us. Yes.
This is great. Very good.
Hey, thanks so much for this wonderful interlude. I should have told the stories a little more.
It was perfect.
Sequential.
No, it was perfect. This is
We love
exactly
it.
what what we're looking for.
Kevin, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I know how Sharon got involved in the artistic side of communications. How about you? Were you a disc jockey or
No, believe it or not. So I listen to podcasts, and I would listen to them on my way to work. And many of the podcasts from many of these societies they're clinically based, right? They're on some clinical topic, and people will talk about it. And I just felt, and then the one that I really like is Legends of Surgery, which often talks about surgeons who,
I like that one a lot
yeah,
too.
and the thing that I thought is that, we have living legends of surgery in SAGES. So I thought it would be a great idea for SAGES to start a podcast. So I joined the communications committee. It was one of the first initiatives that I introduced to Archana Ramaswamy, who was the communications chair at the time. And Sharon was obviously, doing fantastic work with her Hernia Live podcast and many things. So we teamed up, and that's how it started. It's really less than a year old. It started just last year.
It's been a great partnerership. Yeah,
Hey,
I love
congratulations.
Kevin.
Congratulations and thanks to both of you. I think it's a great idea. You ought to have better people to interview than me.
Oh, that's not true.
This has been one of our
You're
best,
great.
I would say.
Am I invited back?
Well, yeah. If we keep, if they keep letting us do it, we'll keep it going for sure. You would definitely be a second time
Oh,
guest.
really?
There's no doubt.
What year do you have in mind?
Yeah, maybe 100,
2025.
probably 100, because we got to get.
No.
Well, it's surprising that a 97-year-old is not the oldest guest that we've had on our show.
So I know that. I'll never catch George.
You never catch George.
Never
So
catch
that's
George.
yeah.
No, God bless him.
Yeah, God bless him. He's fantastic. You are too. I mean, this is
everyone
we've had on so far, and I think I don't know if you've had a chance to listen, but some of them are just really special. So you get a moment, take a listen, and it'll be dropping in the next month or so. So we'll make sure to let you know.
Of SAGES. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I want to thank both of you, and I have great admiration for both of you. You've done this in a highly professional manner, and working with what you have to work with.
Well, thanks so much.
Hey, thank you. You're going to send me your stuff?
Yes, I'll send you my email
Kevin?
and my address. I will. Absolutely.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
And that wraps up today's episode of Sages Stories. You can view the show notes for additional information mentioned on the show. Also, please visit sages.org for membership information and for the most recent news from our society. Follow us on Twitter at sages_updates. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. Tune in again next time, and remember, you can't spell minimally invasive surgery without SAGES.